Chapter 1. The Journey Begins. 1.1. Words of Greetings. Hello to everybody who's decided to open this book. My name is AJ, and this is my sincerest attempt at making English grammar at least a bit palatable. As an unchained soul myself, one of my greatest fears is learning to follow a new set of rules. And it particularly irritates me if the set of rules involved is a stupid one. Unfortunately, I can say with confidence that English grammar is indeed stupid, and I hate it for that. What makes me say that English grammar is stupid? Let me break it down. As I said, English grammar is a set of rules. More specifically, this set of rules is a how-to guide for arranging and modifying words based on their usage. Now, let's take a step back and think about rules in general. What distinguishes a good set of rules from a not-so-good set? When it comes to sets of rules, quality is determined by degree of completeness. In turn, completeness is determined by the number of exceptions included in the set. The more exceptions a set of rules has, the less complete it is, and the lower its quality. And I can guarantee that you'll be bombarded with exceptions while learning English grammar. By now, you'll probably have two questions in mind. 1. Why do I have to learn English grammar if it's so stupid? And 2. Why does English grammar have so many exceptions? First question first. What's another set of rules that you are already following in your life? Something that you may not even realize that you're already following. Why, of course, your national constitution. What would happen if we didn't have a constitution to follow? Well, we would likely be living in a complete chaos. The constitution is what keeps the people, us, in line, what directs us to behave properly. Without it, some people would act however they wanted to, which would result in absolute anarchy. Now, let's get back to English grammar. First of all, English is a language, which means that it is a form of communication. What would happen if everybody spoke English however they wanted to? Communication would be nearly impossible. We need a set of rules or instructions on how to use English so that two people who know those rules can speak English harmoniously with each other. Okay, time to address the second question. Why does English grammar have so many exceptions? Well, to understand that, we must discuss the history of the English language. 1.2. The history of English, in brief. Have you ever thought about how the English language came to be? It has gone through lots of changes since its first appearance. As with most languages, there is no clear-cut moment that English began. But it is believed that the language first surfaced when the Germanic tribes invaded Britain in the 5th century AD. The Germanic tribes, consisting of the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, and the Frisians, had migrated from places we now call northwest Germany, southern Denmark, and the Netherlands. They spoke what we now call Old English. Even though Old English looks and sounds very different from the English we use now, our modern English takes about half of its word from Old English, including be, strong, and water. In come the Normans. In 1066, England was invaded by William the Conqueror, the Duke of Normandy. William, then ruler of the Duchy of Normandy, now northwestern France, led an army of Normans to England and seized victory over the Anglo-Saxon inhabitants. With their migration to England, the Normans imported the roots of modern French. Following this conquest, Old English started receiving French words and grammar. As the Normans took over Britain, French became the language of the royal court, as well as the language of the ruling class. There was also a moment of linguistic class division throughout this time, during which the upper class spoke French and the lower class spoke English. Nevertheless, as Britain entered the 14th century, English reemerged as the dominant language. We now move on to the 16th century, wherein two important events happen. 1. The start of the British Empire, and 2. The start of the Renaissance era. The British Empire marks its beginning in 1497, the year John Cabot discovered Newfoundland, a large island off of the east coast of what is now the United States. Over the next 5 centuries, the British sailed around the world, taking colonies and extending their territory. The British Empire reached the height of its power in 1920, when it took up some 24% of the Earth's total land area and had over 400 million people under its reign. It became so large that at one point there was at least one British colony in every continent, including Antarctica. Naturally, words and grammar from various other languages, from the languages of colonized lands, were accepted into the English language during this era. Meanwhile, with the British Empire growing so big, by the start of 20th century, English had become the international language. Interestingly, English remained the lingua franca even after the fall of the British Empire. Coincidentally, in Europe, the Renaissance had bloomed during this period. In particular, the English Renaissance began in the 16th century, led by great writers and architects such as William Shakespeare, Edmund Spenser, and Inigo Jones. Out of these, you probably know Shakespeare the best, as he left behind many superb pieces of literature that are still widely read today. What you perhaps didn't know, until now, however, is that Shakespeare invented over 1,700 English words that are still in use today. Wait, is it possible for an individual to make up that many words and have them included in the dictionary? Well, probably not anymore. But English was still very much evolving throughout the 16th century, and during that time, inventing your own words and using them in your writings was accepted as artistic freedom. As such, even within England, English underwent major changes during the 16th century. We refer to the English used in that period, between 1500 to 1700, as early modern English, by the way. Finally, we return to the present. The late modern English that we use today emerged around the 18th century. By that time, English had already been influenced by all kinds of different languages. However, yet another important event ends up altering the language even further and introducing more new words: the Industrial Revolution, which took place from the mid-1700s to the mid-1800s, demanded new English vocabulary and grammar to describe the new industrial processes. And that is the basic evolution of English up to this point. That said, English is still evolving, just like any other language in the world. Especially with the rapid development of the internet in recent ages, new words to describe this new digital world are continuously being added to the dictionary. Isn't it amazing how much history a single language can encompass? Unfortunately, what's not so amazing is that because English has received so many words and grammar rules from so many different languages throughout this evolution, it's now a hazy mashup. And while having more words is always awesome, having more grammar rules is not always so awesome. Accepting languages from different languages had led to countless conflicts among grammar rules. That's why English grammar includes so many exceptions. This is why English grammar is, again, in my honest and humble opinion, stupid. 1.3. What is grammar and why do we need it? Have you ever been to IKEA? Yes, I'm talking about the home furnishings department store. When you go to an IKEA, what do you see? That's right, you see all those nicely arranged, fully built pieces of furniture. But what do you get when you order a piece of furniture from IKEA? Is the furniture delivered to your house pre-built and ready to use? No. You usually get the individual parts that you need to put together to make a complete piece of furniture, and you get an instruction manual. It's your job to assemble the furniture. If you think about it, English is very similar to IKEA. Whenever someone speaks or writes in English, what do they use? Sentences. A sentence is the most fundamental unit of communication in any language. In other words, when you first encounter English, IKEA, what you see are nicely written sentences, fully built pieces of furniture. However, English doesn't just place these fully assembled sentences at your disposal. Instead, English gives you words, furniture parts, and grammar, the instruction manual. You yourself must then use grammar to assemble the words in order to form sentences. Here's the thing about IKEA instruction manuals though. Some rebels, like me, often ignore these manuals because they think the furniture assembly process is self-explanatory. And truthfully, it often is. Let's say that you order a dining table from IKEA. Most likely, the pieces you'll get will include one large rectangular flat top, 4 legs of identical length, and a variety of bolts and nuts to hold everything together. Using nothing but common sense, you can probably figure out that one of the 4 table legs included must be attached to each corner of the rectangular tabletop. Using only that common sense, without any help from the instruction manual, you can probably assemble the dining table just fine. Okay, but can you apply this process to speaking and writing English? Can you skip grammar and go straight into forming sentences? Well, kind of, but that might not be the best idea. Let's discuss this a little further. Let's take a step back and think about where that common sense comes from. How did you know that you need to attach one of the 4 table legs to each corner of the rectangular tabletop to form a dining table? Well, it's because you've already seen many dining tables in your life. You know exactly what they look like, and you also know how they function. Therefore, you are able to build that dining table without using the instruction manual. Applying the same logic to English, if you've seen enough sentences, dining tables, you can probably skip grammar, the instruction manual, and try building your own sentence with the words, the parts, you have. What could go wrong? Well, actually, several things. The thing is, based on the fact that you're reading this book, you're probably not yet an expert at making your own sentences in English. Okay, so who then are these experts? And what do they have that we don't have? Experts are people who learn or study one particular area so that their skills and knowledge in that area are unmatched. Since their focus is so specific, they rarely make mistakes in their area of expertise, and even if they do make a mistake, they can fix it in no time. So who are the furniture building experts? The professional carpenters specializing in making furniture. Okay, and who are the English sentences experts? The English linguists, scholars, historians, and grammarians. If you were already an English grammarian, you probably wouldn't be reading this book, and if you do happen to be an English grammarian, please go easy on me. I know I don't have perfect grammar myself. Okay, so what could happen if a non-professional furniture builder tries to assemble a piece of furniture without referring to the instruction manual? Well, for one thing, their likelihood of making a mistake would be high. Let's reconsider the dining table example. If a non-expert attempts to assemble the table without consulting the instruction manual, they could end up with something like the picture in the diagram below. You might think this is ridiculous, but it could easily happen to an amateur. If a non-professional tries to do a professional job without consulting the manual, the non-professional will be prone to error. But do you know what's worse than a non-professional making a mistake? A non-professional not knowing how to fix their mistake. And do you know what's even worse than that? A non-professional not even realizing that they've made a mistake. Now back to English. Like the non-professional furniture assembler, if you, a non-professional, try to assemble sentences without consulting those rules, you are bound to make mistakes. And as I suggested, you might not even realize it when you've made one. Thus, we arrive at an important conclusion. You, as a not yet professional, should consult the rules of English grammar in order to make spotless sentences.